Welcome, everyone, to vpod.ai. We're here today to break down something that, well, it's probably sitting on almost every kitchen counter. Olive oil. You might use it every day, splash it on a salad, maybe heat it in a pan, but do you know the high-stakes chemistry and the really precise steps that decide if that golden liquid actually earns the title extra virgin?
It's fascinating, really. Today, we're exploring the exact mechanics, the standards behind olive oil, from the moment the fruit's picked right through to the final classification.
We're going to walk through how science, temperature, and just timing create those quality grades we all see on the shelves.
Yeah, how tiny differences can have a massive impact on flavor and quality.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The journey starts way before the mill, right? With the harvest itself. How crucial is getting that timing right? Seems like the first big decision.
Oh, it absolutely is. Maybe the most crucial for the final taste. The whole flavor profile is pretty much decided by how ripe the olive is when you pick it. So think about it like this. You've got your earlier harvest, the greener olives. They yield a stronger, often spicier, kind of peppery oil. Very intense.
Right, that's that kick people talk about with really good oil.
Exactly. That's the polyphenols, really concentrated. But if the producer waits, lets the olives get fully ripe, darker, well, you get more oil, a higher yield, but the flavor is much, much milder, softer, less pungent. That choice really sets the direction.
Okay, so you've harvested, then the mechanical stuff starts crushing the olives. But then there's this step, malaxation. It sounds almost like cooking.
Yeah, the name is a bit like that, but it's not about heat, not really. Malaxation is this gentle, slow mixing or kneading of the olive paste after it's been crushed.
Gentle mixing. Okay, why? What's the point?
It's purely mechanical. See, the paste has all these tiny, tiny oil droplets trapped inside, suspended in water and solids. Malaxing helps break down the last remaining cell walls.
Ah, okay. To release more oil.
To release it, yes, but critically, to encourage those little droplets to find each other and, well, stick together, coalesce, form bigger drops that are easier to separate out later.
Right, you need bigger drops for the separation. I get that. But wait a minute. If warming things up generally makes oil flow better and you want a good yield, why is everyone so obsessed with keeping the temperature low during malaxation? Wouldn't a bit of heat actually help things along?
That's the absolute crux of the quality issue. You're right. Heat would increase the yield. You'd get more oil out faster. But it significantly degrades the quality. Heat is the enemy of those delicate flavor compounds and those healthy antioxidants. The moment things get too warm, you start chemical reactions that, well, destroy the good stuff.
Okay, so there's a hard limit then.
There is. The general recommendation is usually not mixing for longer than, say, 60 minutes. And critically, keeping the temperature below 35 degrees Celsius, go above that, and you risk degradation, loss of flavor, maybe even increased astringency.
35°C. That's sort of the danger zone threshold for general milling.
That's a good way to put it. But as we'll see, for the really top stuff, the cold extracted label, the limit is even stricter than that.
Interesting. Okay, before we get to modern extraction, thinking historically, it sounds quite romantic, doesn't it? Stone mills, big presses, fiber mats. How did that traditional method actually work?
It definitely had that picturesque quality. Olives were crushed, often by large stones. Then that resulting paste was spread onto these round, woven fiber mats.
Like stacking pancakes of olive paste.
Sort of, yeah. They'd stack them high, maybe dozens of mats, put them in a hydraulic press, and apply tremendous pressure. The liquid, a mix of oil and the olive's own vegetation water, would squeeze out.
And since oil floats.
Exactly. They'd collect the liquid, let it settle, and eventually skim the oil off the top. Simple in principle.
But what were the downsides? Sounds labor-intensive.
Hugely labor-intensive. But the bigger issues were hygiene and oxidation. Think about it. That olive paste was sitting on those mats, exposed to the air, sometimes for hours during the pressing cycle.
Right, lots of time for oxygen to do its damage.
Precisely. Significant oxidation could occur. And those fiber mats, they were practically impossible to clean perfectly. So you'd get residues, maybe microbial growth, potentially spoiling the flavor of the next batch. Quality control was, well, let's just say it was challenging. Unpredictable.
Okay, so that sets the stage for the modern revolution. This sounds like where things get really interesting. Modern production flipped that script, mostly using centrifugal force, right? Developed around the 1960s.
It was a complete game changer, absolutely transformed the industry. Instead of batch pressing, modern mills use high-speed centrifugation. usually in a continuous flow system,
Continuous flow? Yeah.
meaning you feed olives in one end, they get crushed, malaxed, and then spun in a centrifuge, and the oil comes out the other end, pretty much nonstop, all within stainless steel, fully enclosed equipment.
Ah, enclosed. So the key benefits are speed, efficiency, and crucially, hygiene. No more air exposure, no more dirty mats.
Exactly. Speed, yes. Efficiency, definitely. But hygiene is massive. The paste isn't exposed to air or potentially contaminated surfaces. The centrifuge itself spins the mixture incredibly fast.
How does that separate things?
It uses density. Spins so fast that the different components separate out. The oil, being the lightest, collects in the center. The heavier water goes to another layer, and the solid pomace gets pushed to the outside wall. Clean separation. And importantly, this system allows for very precise temperature control.
Which brings us back to that term we see everywhere on the good stuff, cold pressed or cold extracted. What do those terms actually mandate? You mentioned 35 degrees C as a general ceiling, but for this label.
Right. For an oil to be labeled cold pressed, which usually refers to traditional presses, though it's often used interchangeably or more accurately now, cold extracted, using centrifuges. The rule for virgin and extra virgin olive oil is very strict. The oil has to be obtained only by mechanical or physical means. No added heat beyond what the process generates naturally. And the temperature throughout that entire process, crushing, malaxation, separation, must never exceed 27 degrees Celsius.
27 C, that's 80 Fahrenheit. That's the specific legal line in the sand.
That's the line. It ensures minimal thermal alteration, preserving those delicate flavors, aromas, and crucially, the nutritional benefits.
Okay, that's a subtle but really vital difference. 35 degrees C is maybe where things start to go wrong generally, but 27 degrees C is the absolute maximum allowed to earn that cold extracted claim and aim for the top grades.
Precisely, and that strict control leads us right into how these oils are actually graded. It's not just about taste, there's serious chemistry involved.
So once the oil is out, how do they score it? There's a hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
What defines the different grades?
There's a very clear hierarchy, yes. At the absolute top, you have extra virgin olive oil, or EVOO. Below that is virgin olive oil. And then you get into oils not fit for consumption without processing, like crude olive oil. And even further down, the refined grades.
EVOO is the goal. What specifically makes an oil extra virgin? I know there's a taste test involved, but also chemical tests.
Correct. EVOO has to meet two strict sets of criteria. First, the sensory analysis must have a median of defects equal to 0. Basically, trained tasters can't detect any flaws like rancidity, mustiness, etc. It has to taste perfect, fruity.
0 defects, wow. And the chemistry.
Chemically, the key measure is free acidity, usually expressed as percentage of oleic acid. For EVOO, this must be extremely low, officially not more than 0.8 grams per 100 grams, or 0.8%, though some stricter standards, like in California, aim for 0.5% or even lower.
Okay, 0.8% maximum free acidity. What does that number actually tell a producer or us? What causes high acidity?
Free fatty acid content, or FFA, is a direct indicator of oil degradation. Specifically something called lipolysis. That's the breakdown of the oil's main components, the triglycerides.
So high FFA means the oil is breaking down.
Essentially, yes. High FFA usually points to problems before or during milling. Things like damaged or bruised fruit, maybe the olive sat around too long after harvest before being processed, or maybe careless handling in the mill itself. It's often the first sign that something went wrong. Enzymes have been active.
So if the FFA is too high, say above 0.8%, it immediately drops out of the EVO category. Where does it go?
Correct. If it meets the sensory standard but has acidity between 0.8% and maybe up to 2.0%, those standards can vary slightly, it can be classified as virgin olive oil. Still consumable, still produced mechanically, but just not that top tier.
Okay, virgin is the next step down. What happens if the acidity is even higher than that, say over 2.0%, or if it has taste defects?
Then it falls into the category historically known as lampante oil, now often just called crude olive oil. If the acidity is too high, or if it fails the sensory test, meaning it has noticeable defects, it's legally deemed not fit for human consumption as is.
Not fit for consumption, so what happens to it? You can't just throw it away, surely.
No, it has to be set for refining. That's the crucial distinction. Lampante oil must be refined before it can be sold for food use.
Okay, that line between virgin, consumable, and lampante needs refining seems pretty stark. Besides FFA, what other chemical markers are producers watching like hawks to make sure their oil stays in the good categories?
Well, besides acidity, the other big concern is oxidation. How much has the oil reacted with oxygen, basically gone stale? The first chemical checkpoint for this is the peroxide value, or PV.
Peroxide value sounds like something from a first aid kit.
Yeah. But here it measures the primary products of oxidation, things called hydroperoxides. Think of PV as an early warning sign of staleness. A high PV means the oil has started to oxidize, maybe due to poor storage or age, even if it hasn't developed that full-blown rancid taste yet.
So PV catches the initial stages. What test measures oxidation when it's gone further, when you might actually taste the rancidity?
That's where UV absorbency testing comes in. Specifically, they measure how much light the oil absorbs at certain ultraviolet wavelengths, known as K232 and K270.
Okay, what now?
K232 and K270. High values, especially for K270, indicate more advanced oxidation. It means secondary oxidation products like aldehydes and ketones have formed. And those are the compounds responsible for that unmistakable, unpleasant, rancid flavor and smell.
So a high K270 reading is basically chemical proof the oil is rancid or headed there fast.
Exactly. It's a marker for advanced degradation, often from age or improper handling, like exposure to heat or light. If your K270 is high, the oil is essentially spoiled from a quality perspective.
So let's say an oil fails these tests badly. Maybe its acidity is 3%, the PV is high, K270 is through the roof. Is there any way to fix it? Can you somehow turn it back into EVOO?
Unfortunately, no. For virgin oils, that loss of quality, the high acidity, the oxidation, it's irreversible. You can't unrancidify an oil or lower its acidity through simple means. The damage is done.
So the only option is...
The only path forward for that oil is downgrading. It gets classified as lampante and sent off to an industrial refinery.
And refining, that's the process that takes this defective, maybe bitter, maybe rancid oil and turns it into something neutral that we might see sold as just olive oil or light olive oil.
Precisely. Refining is a heavy-duty industrial process. It typically involves steps like neutralization, often using chemicals like caustic soda to strip out those free fatty acids, then bleaching, using clays perhaps to remove pigments, and critically, deodorization.
Deodorization.
Yeah, using high temperatures and steam under vacuum stripping steam to boil off the volatile compounds that cause off flavors and odors, including the rancid ones.
So it makes the oil edible again, but at a cost.
A huge cost to its natural character. Refining makes the oil neutral, stable, bland, but it also strips away almost all the natural flavors, aromas, colors, and perhaps most importantly, those beneficial micronutrients like polyphenols.
That makes sense why light or refined olive oil has basically no olive flavor or color. Okay, let's touch on another product that often confuses people. Olive pomace oil. We mentioned pomace earlier, the solid stuff left over. Where does this oil fit in?
Right, pomace is that solid paste, the leftover skins, pulp, pit fragments, after the first mechanical extraction of virgin oil. But it still contains a small amount of trapped oil, maybe 5 to 8%.
Not much, but I guess producers want to get it out.
They do.
Yeah?
But because it's trapped so tightly, you can't get it out mechanically anymore. So to extract this remaining oil, they have to resort to using chemical solvents, typically hexane, usually combined with heat.
Hexane, like the industrial solvent.
Yes. They use hexane to dissolve the oil out of the pomace solids. Then the hexane is evaporated off. The resulting crude pomace oil must also be refined, just like lampante oil, because the process is harsh.
So olive pomace oil is defined by being extracted with chemicals and heat.
Exactly. That's why it's considered a distinct and much lower quality category. It's often blended with a little bit of virgin olive oil before being sold, just to give it some semblance of olive oil character.
Okay, that clarifies pomace oil. So let's say we've successfully navigated all this. We've got a producer who harvested carefully, malaxed gently below 27 degrees C, extracted quickly. They've bottled a beautiful EVOO. What's the best way for us, the listener, to store it at home to keep it that way? How do we prevent ruining all that hard work?
That's a great point. The quality control doesn't end when it leaves the producer. You, the consumer, really are the last line of defense for that oil's quality.
What are the main enemies we need to guard against?
The big three for olive oil are light, heat, and air, oxygen. So storage is key. You need to keep it in a cool, dark place, definitely not on the windowsill or right next to your stove or oven.
Heat and light are bad. What about the container itself? Does the bottle matter?
Oh, immensely. The packaging choice is critical. Reputable producers will almost always use dark glass bottles, green or brown or opaque tins or containers.
Why dark?
Because light, especially UV light, is incredibly damaging. It accelerates oxidation and degradation reactions. There are specific chemical markers producers can test for, like pyrophyophytin A, which indicates this kind of photodegradation. A clear glass bottle might look nice on the shelf, but it offers zero protection. Your beautiful EVOO will degrade much faster.
So cool, dark place, and pay attention to the bottle. Dark glass or tin is best. Keep it sealed tight too, I assume, because of the air.
Absolutely. Keep the cap on tight to minimize oxygen exposure. Once opened, it's best to use it within a reasonable time frame, maybe a few months, to enjoy it at its peak.
Okay, connecting this all back. Why should we as consumers really care about seeking out that top quality EVOO beyond just better flavor? You mentioned preserving compounds. Why is that cold, careful process so important for health?
It really comes down to preserving the natural goodness of the olive. That gentle, non-invasive cold extraction process keeps intact the valuable microconstituents that get destroyed by heat and refining.
And those are mainly?
We're talking primarily about polyphenols.
Mm.
These are a large group of natural compounds in olives, things like oleuropein, hydroxytyrosol, tyrosol. They act as powerful antioxidants in the oil, protecting it from oxidation, but they also have significant health benefits for us.
Antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, right?
Exactly. They're known for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. And interestingly, these polyphenols are also responsible for some of EVOO's characteristic sensory notes, the bitterness on the tongue, the pungency or peppery kick in the back of the throat.
So if you taste that bitterness or pepperiness,
That's actually a good sign. It means the oil is rich in these healthy polyphenols. An oil that's completely bland and smooth likely had those compounds processed out, or they've degraded due to age or poor storage. So that flavor is a direct clue to its potential health benefits.
it really sounds like producing truly excellent oil. That EVOO is fundamentally an exercise in damage control. It's a sophisticated race against oxidation, against hydrolysis, where every single step requires precision, especially with timing and temperature.
It absolutely is. It's a constant effort to prevent failure, from making sure the fruit is healthy and undamaged when it's picked, to rigidly sticking to that 27 degrees Celsius limit during milling, to choosing the right protective packaging. The extra virgin label isn't about fixing problems. It's an assurance that problems were prevented from the very start.
So next time you pick up a bottle that says extra virgin olive oil, remember, you're not just buying oil. You're buying the result of a process that successfully navigated all those potential pitfalls, met strict chemical benchmarks, achieved that zero-defect taste score, and crucially, protected those tiny but potent polyphenol molecules.
Which leads to a final thought. Considering just how volatile this oil's quality is constantly under threat from light, heat, oxygen to simple aging, maybe ask yourself this. Are you giving the same level of careful attention to how you use and store that oil as the producer invested in actually creating it? Because really, that final step in protecting the quality, it rests with you. You're the last guardian of that bottle's integrity.